During the rising unrest in Ukraine in the aftermath of the 2014 Ukrainian Revolution, the city of Mariupol, in Donetsk Oblast, saw lethal skirmishes break out between Ukrainian government forces, local police, separatist militants affiliated with the Donetsk People's Republic, and civilians. Government forces withdrew from Mariupol on 9 May after heavy fighting left the city's police headquarters gutted by fire. These forces maintained checkpoints outside the city. Intervention by Metinvest steel workers on 15 May led to the removal of barricades from the city center, and the resumption of patrols by local police. Separatists continued to operate a headquarters in another part of the city. Background: Mariupol is the second largest city in the Donetsk Oblast, and has experienced sporadic unrest since March 2014. Pro-Russian and anti-government groups first occupied the city council building on 18 March. The first violent incident occurred during the night on 16 April, when about 300 pro-Russian and anti-government protesters attacked a Ukrainian military unit in Mariupol, throwing petrol bombs. Internal Affairs Minister Arsen Avakov said that troops were forced to open fire, resulting in the killing of 3 of the attackers. Ukrainian government forces claimed they liberated Mariupol City Council on 24 April, though this was heavily disputed by anti-government demonstrators, and a BBC report said that there was no sign of the army. The building changed hands multiple times thereafter, but was captured by the army on 8 May. Events: a violent clash involving armored personnel carriers took place at the Mariupol police headquarters on Victory Day, 9 May. The Ukrainian government said it sent in the APCs in response to an attempt by militant separatists to storm the building. According to the Internal Affairs Ministry, the assault on the station involved 60 separatists armed with automatic weapons. Local policemen reportedly helped the militants during the takeover and later clashed with internal troops who fired on the building with mounted, heavy machine guns atop the APCs. The Ukrainian government said its contingent included police, as well as an Omega unit of the National Guard. Pro-Russian protesters attempted to stop the advance, but were unsuccessful. Ukrainian security forces attacked the police headquarters in an attempt to recapture it from militants, and during the assault the building caught fire. According to Internal Affairs Minister Arsen Avakov, a separatist sniper fired from the upper floors of the hospital at Ukrainian soldiers and civilians. Avakov said that the counterattack resulted in the deaths of 20 separatists, and the capture of 4, while the rest dispersed. He referred to the separatist militants as terrorists, and warned that annihilation would be Ukraine's answer to future acts of terrorism. Avakov's account of what happened was contested by some Mariupol residents, who spoke shortly after the incident with reporters from the New York Times, the BBC, and The Independent. The residents said that the government had attacked local police who were sympathetic to protesters. One version of events, put forward by a group of residents cited by the New York Times, was that the clash was sparked by Mariupol police rebelling against a new police chief sent by the interim government in Kiev. The BBC report included a video showing pro-Russian activists trying unsuccessfully to stop armored vehicles from moving into the city. After the fighting, the Ukrainian forces withdrew from the city, leaving it fully under control of pro-Russian protesters. The military retained control over checkpoints surrounding the city. The Ukrainian government said that its forces withdrew to avoid further aggravation. The troops moving out of the city shot at unarmed civilians, according to The Guardian. Anna Neistat from Human Rights Watch stated, "My preliminary findings suggest that Ukrainian units might indeed have used excessive force near the drama theater, which resulted in deaths and injuries of some unarmed people, and urged a full, thorough investigation." One armored personnel carrier was captured by pro-Russian protesters. After the clashes, the protesters built barricades on roads in the city center, Overnight, the city administration building was set ablaze and 3 gun shops were looted. The next day, insurgents set alight the captured armored vehicle, causing the ammunition inside to explode. Individuals also threw petrol bombs at the city prosecutor's office and a military building, setting them on fire. On the 11th of May, 8 polling places were set up in Mariupol for the DPR's referendum on self-rule, with queues hundreds of meters long. Intervention of Metinvest steelworkers. Metinvest, in conjunction with owners Renat Akhmetov and Vadim Novinsky, announced on the 11th of May that the company would be forming city-wide militia groups from local steelworkers to work with police. The squads were intended to protect civilians from looters and criminals operating in the city. Akhmetov urged the Ukrainian government to refrain from sending its forces to the city and start negotiations with the insurgents. An agreement initiated by Metinvest was signed on the 15th of May by steel plant directors, police and community leaders, and a representative of the Donetsk People's Republic separatists. Steel workers and security guards from Metinvest, along with local police, began joint patrols in the city of Mariupol. Associated Press reported that these groups forced the insurgents out of the buildings that they had been occupying. Although a DPR representative was party to the deal which led to this vacation of buildings by the insurgents, a local commander of those insurgents who had been occupying the building said that, "Someone is trying to sow discord among us. Someone has signed something, but we will continue our fight," and that everyone ran away. Steel workers could be seen removing barricades from the city center, and also cleaning up the burnt city administration building. By the morning of the 16th of May, Associated Press journalists could find no trace of the insurgents in Mariupol city center. On the 16th of May, however, it seemed that separatists were not banished from the city, as reporters from the Washington Post said that about 100 pro-Russian activists gathered on the steps of the city administration building, and that the separatist flag continued to fly over it. Radio Free Europe reported on the 17th of May that separatist militants were patrolling Mariupol alongside police. On the 19th of May, CNN reporters found DPR supporters, including armed militia, running their headquarters in a suburb of Mariupol. The leader of the group, Denis Kuzmenko, told the reporters he welcomed the role of the steel workers in the city. Government recapture of Mariupol. On the morning of the 13th of June, heavy fighting resumed as part of military operations in Mariupol, where the Azov and Dnipro-1 battalions retook the city and key buildings occupied by insurgents, killing 5 militants and destroying an insurgent BRDM-2 armored vehicle. 2 soldiers were also killed and 4 to 11 separatists were captured. A military armored personnel carrier was destroyed during the fighting. Internal Affairs Minister Avakov said, "All key terrorist strongholds are being brought under control." As a result of the 6-hour battle, Ukrainian forces hoisted the national flag over the insurgent headquarters in the city and said they regained a 121-kilometer stretch of the border with Russia. Immediately following the operation, Ukrainian President Petro Poroshenko instructed the chief of the Donetsk Regional State Administration, Serhiy Taruta, to temporarily move the regional capital to Mariupol. A minor incident occurred the next morning, when a convoy of border guardsmen was attacked by insurgents whilst passing Mariupol, leaving 5 guardsmen dead and 7 wounded. OSCE monitors visited Mariupol to assess the situation in the city on the 18th of August. They reported that the city was calm and secure. They spoke to a local activist who told him that the city had become stable in the months after the recapture of the city by government forces. According to UNHCR, there were at least 4,000 refugees from the ongoing war in the Donbas region at the time that the monitors visited the city. Unofficial statistics cited by the OSCE give the number of refugees in Mariupol as 20,000. Casualties. There were conflicting reports regarding the number and identity of the dead with regard to the 9th of May incident. Internal Affairs Minister Arsen Avakov stated that the operation resulted in the death of 1 policeman, and about 20 people described as terrorists. 4 militants were captured and 5 policemen were wounded. The Daily Telegraph reported that some locals thought that most of the between 5 and 20 people killed were innocent civilians. City Traffic Police Chief Viktor Syenko was killed in the fighting on the 9th of May. A Euronews report said Mariupol residents, including the priest who conducted Syenko's funeral, were unsure how he was killed, or who was responsible. Chief of Police Valery Andrushuk was captured by pro-Russian forces. He was released on the 12th of May, and was found in serious condition with a brain injury, brain contusion, and broken ribs. It was confirmed later that 2 pro-government Territorial Defense Battalion paramilitaries were killed as well. One of them was the deputy commander of the Dnipro Battalion, Sergei Demedenko, who was killed by sniper fire. Citing eyewitnesses, Mariupol internet publication A629 reported that terrorists took Demedenko's dead body and cut his ears off and gouged his eyes. 8 soldiers were also wounded in the fighting. The Mariupol city administration declared the 10th of May as a day of mourning in honor of those killed in the 9th of May incident. Residents placed flowers in front of the gutted police station. A large public funeral was held in Kiev on the 12th of May for an Azov battalion member who was killed in the fighting. A further violent death was reported on the 25th of May, when the Ukrainian government said its special police had killed a bodyguard of Mariupol DPR leader Denis Kuzmenko, while arresting Kuzmenko himself. 5 separatists and 2 soldiers were killed during the takeover of the city by the military on the 13th of June. 5 border guards were killed and 7 wounded in an ambush attack on a military convoy on the 14th of June. A report by Human Rights Watch said that the Ukrainian military may have used excessive force during the Battle of Mariupol. In January 2015, KYIV Post cited a Bellingcat citizens' investigation into the May 2014 events in Mariupol. It asserted that Ukrainian soldiers had made a decided effort to avoid firing directly at the protesters, whilst taking fire and suffering casualties themselves. According to the investigation, of the 13 people listed killed, 6 were Ukrainian law enforcement officers, soldiers, or members of the Azov battalion.